Our goal is to learn how to use endings in the dative and the accusative case here. First thing you want to do is you want to find out parts of speech. There are 4 steps to that. First thing you want to find is you want to find the verb, the action word. Once you find that, you find out who's doing it, and that's the subject. Then you say, the third thing you say is you say the subject plus the verb. Then you ask whom or what, and that equals the direct object. The last step is to ask to or for whom or what, and that equals the indirect object. Once you can do those 4 things, find the verb, find the subject, say subject plus verb, ask whom or what, and find the direct object. There's your third item, direct object. And then your fourth is find the indirect. Once you can find those parts of speech and you have your tabella, your chart with you, see it here, there it is, then you can figure out the endings, because if it's a subject, you would go by this row of endings. If it were the direct object, you would go by this set of endings, depending upon whether it's der, die, das, or plural, or if it is direct object or subject, etc. If it answers the question to or for, then you would go with this ending. Down here, the dative endings. Pause that. So when you know whether it's the subject, which should be the first row on your chart, if it's a direct object, you use the second row. Whether or not it's one of the 3 or the indirect object, then you'd use the third row. The other thing you want to watch out for are sometimes there will be prepositions like durch, gegen, ohne, those are accusative only. Aus, bei, mit, nach, Zeit, von, zu are dative only. And then we have this other set of prepositions. These are called two-way prepositions. They can either go to the accusative for endings or to dative. And the test that you give them is you ask, is the situation location, or is someone or something going somewhere, is it destination? If it's location, you use dative, like the book's on the table. You would use dative. Das Buch ist auf dem Tisch. But if you say I'm putting the book on the table, ich lege das Buch auf den Tisch. So it depends on the situation, and we'll learn more about that later. But you will see mit in this. Mit automatically takes dative, means with. If you need to know what all those mean, you can go online to our class page, and we have those where you can hover over them and it tells you what they mean. All right, let's go on to the endings there. Did I lose it? Just pause. Let's find those endings. So here are some samples, and we want to put in the correct endings here. We want to say, I give to my father a book for Christmas. So first off, we say, where's the verb, the action word? And what do you see?
Gebe.
Give. Gebe, right. So gebe. So that's a verb. Who gives here in this sentence? I. So I is the subject. I give whom or what?
My father.
Do you give your father to somebody?
Oh, wait. Oh, give what? Oh, a book.
The book, right. So the book is the direct object because it answers the question whom or what. Now you ask to or for whom or what?
My father.
And then he would be the
Indirect object.
indirect object. Good. So now, if it's a subject, we use the first row on the chart. If it's the direct object, we use the second row. If it's the indirect, we use the third. We also need to know whether the item is der, die, das. So I can tell you that Vater is der. That one's kind of obvious. Buch is das. You have to know gender, number, role to figure out what endings to put in. Gender is it der, die, das? Number is it possibly plural? And role is is it subject or direct object or indirect object in a sense. So if we said he's the indirect object and he's normally der, we go to the chart and we say indirect object, so we go dative. And now it's mine, a form of mine is an ein word. Mine is in this list down below. Right here, these are all ein words. So if you have any of these words, they will take the red endings up above. Okay? So let's go up here. It's dative and it's der. What happens to mine? Goes to meinem. Yeah.
Meinem.
So we say, ich gebe meinem Vater ein Buch zu Weihnachten. Next sentence. This is tricky. Wer means who. But if we go back here, who can take on different cases here. Wer means who if it's a subject. If you say whom, like whom do I see? If it's a direct object, you say wen. And if you to say whom, and to or for whom in German is wem. So if it's a subject to say who, you say wer. If it's a thing, you say was for what. If it's a person direct object, you say wen. Or if it's a thing, was. Wen means whom, was means what, and direct object wem. Okay, so in this case, when we go back to this one, you're saying, first off, what's the action word, the verb in that sentence in 9?
To give.
To give as a gift, right? So that's a verb. Who's giving as a gift?
Who, right?
Who? It really is who,
Yeah.
right, in this sentence. So it's the subject. Who? So if it's a subject and we want a form of wer, going back to the tabella, which form of wer are we going to use for subject? Nominative.
Der.
You want a form of who?
Oh, form of who?
Yeah, and it's a subject.
So I
If
need-
it's a direct object, you say wen. If it's a subject, you say wer for who. That one's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back. And we would say to whom, wem. Wait a minute. I did that wrong. Let's go back. Schenkst is the verb. Who's doing the giving?
Who?
You, right?
You, okay.
That subject was wrong. It should have been over here. You give whom or what? The Armband Uhr. So that's the direct object. To or for whom or what?
Who?
To or for who here. And so if it's the indirect, what would you put for wer for the indirect object, for dative? Let's go back there.
Which column am I in here?
Them.
Wem? Okay.
These are just special for wer.
Oh, okay.
There. Okay. So we've got wem. Okay. Meine Schwester hat bald Namenstag. My sister soon has her name's day, like your name. Okay. Was soll ich? What should I buy for her? We had some pronouns to say to or for. Ich, mir. Du, dir. Er, ihm means to or for him. To or for her is ihr. To or for it shares the same one as er, it's ihm. To or for we, us, uns. To or for you all, euch. To or for them, small ihnen. To or for you, formal, capital ihnen. Okay, they all go with ich, du, er, sie, es, wir, ihr, sie, sie. Okay, so we're going to pull that now. We're going to say, was soll ich? What should I buy for her? What would we say?
Ear.
Ja. Was soll ich ihr kaufen? Was schenkst du? What are you giving to your cousin? Dein is an ein word. So you're saying to or for, so that's actually the indirect object if we went through the whole process. Okay, so let's go back here. What's the form for die Cousine? And it's indirect, so it's dative right here. Der, die, das. So this is the D box right here. What form of dein for Cousine would you say?
Der.
Deiner.
Oh, I'm Diner. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm using the red ones. Okay.
So, deiner. Was schenkst du deiner Cousine zum Geburtstag for her birthday? Anke möchte, she wants to give CDs to him. Using one of these over here again. Ihm CDs geben. Soll ich, should I buy jewelry for you? Yeah. Catching on?
Yeah. The pronouns.
Ihr gebt to the teacher who's a lady a Blumenstrauß, yeah? So, die Lehrerin, and you want to say to her.
Indirect,
So,
right?
So what happens?
D, so it goes
It's not a nine word, it's a Dale word,
Okay,
so
so-
D goes to,
der. Okay. Okay.
yeah. So you'd say, ihr gebt, you all are giving to the, you'd say der Lehrerin, and in Blumenstrauß, ich glaube meine Mutter schenkt to me. She's giving as a gift to me,
Mir.
mir. Gut?
Yeah.